I will teach you how to think correctly, ladies and gentlemen. The greatest battle you will ever fight is not in the marketplace, not in your relationships, and not in your bank account. The greatest battle is in your mind. Today, I'm not here to motivate you, I'm here to shift you, because until you learn to think correctly, you will keep building broken strategies on faulty foundations. The quality of your life, your income, your impact, none of it will ever rise above the quality of your thinking. I will teach you how to think with clarity, with purpose, and with power, not just emotionally, but strategically, because when you master your mind, everything else follows. Let's begin. Thinking is not automatic. It's a skill, and like any skill, it must be trained with intention. Let me start with something that may surprise you. Most people don't think, they just remember. They regurgitate old patterns, inherited beliefs, and recycled fears and call that thinking. But real thinking, correct, intentional, purpose-driven thinking, is a skill. And like any skill, it doesn't come naturally. It comes through training. When you were born, you weren't thinking critically. You were surviving, adapting, reacting, and most people never evolve past that level. They go through life responding to their environment instead of creating their environment. Why? Because no one taught them how to think. But here's the truth. If you don't train your mind, the world will train it for you, and it will train you to lose. Correct thinking is like weightlifting. No one gets stronger by watching someone else lift. You don't develop strong thoughts by reading a quote, clapping at a seminar, or reposting a reel. You develop strong thinking by doing the hard, uncomfortable work of challenging your current thoughts. You have to get in the mental gym, pick up heavy questions, and wrestle with inconvenient truths. You have to ask yourself daily, is this thought serving me or sabotaging me? Is this belief helping me build or keeping me stuck? Because until you become intentional about your thinking, your mind will default to fear, doubt, and mediocrity. That's the default setting for an untrained brain. You don't rise by accident. You rise by design. Now, let's be clear. I'm not talking about just being positive. I'm not here to sell you fluff and fairy dust. I'm talking about mastering the discipline of thought. I'm talking about the ability to pause before reacting. The ability to hold a conflicting idea in your head and not shut down. The ability to separate what's real from what's emotional. That's trained thinking. That's correct thinking. And when you develop it, you stop chasing external change and start commanding internal control. Most people think in loops. They think in cycles of what if, I can't, and that's just the way it is. They don't know how to interrupt that cycle because they've never been taught how to think from first principles. They've never been taught to analyze, to reverse, engineer, to break problems into parts, so they stay stuck. Year after year, different job, same stress. Different partner, same arguments. Different goals, same sabotage. Because it's not the situation that needs to change, it's the way they think. When you change your thinking, you change the decisions you make. And when you change your decisions, you change the trajectory of your life. Correct thinking starts with awareness. You have to become a student of your own thoughts. You have to observe them without judgment but with precision. Ask yourself, where did this thought come from? Did I choose it, or was it given to me by culture, family, fear, or failure? Once you start questioning the source of your thinking, you'll start reclaiming the authority over your mind, and that's when transformation begins. You can't outperform a mindset you refuse to challenge. You can't out-earn, out-love, or out-lead bad thinking. You have to confront it, and then you have to reconstruct it, thought by thought, belief by belief, pattern by pattern. Thinking correctly also means choosing what you think about. You don't need to think about everything. That's mental clutter. That's the reason most people are exhausted, not from work, but from worry. You need focus, you need direction. You need to decide what deserves space in your mind and what must be evicted. Your mind is prime real estate. Don't let just any thought live there. Train it, shape it. Guard it, feed it with intentional input, challenge it with higher conversations, expose it to bigger problems so it grows the muscles to solve them. If you want to change your life, change the way you think about time. Change the way you think about money. Change the way you think about yourself. And yes, change the way you think about thinking. Stop waiting for permission to think differently. Stop waiting for the world to tell you it's okay to think higher. Thinking is your tool, it's your weapon, it's your vehicle to every breakthrough you've been praying for, but you'll never access its full power until you respect it as a discipline, not just a feeling. You don't rise to the level of your dreams, you rise or fall to the level of your thoughts. Every action begins with a thought. Every habit begins with a thought. Every relationship, every opportunity, every failure, every win. It all begins in the mind. So if you want to master your external world, start by mastering your internal narrative. That's what it means to think correctly. And when you do, you won't just change what's possible, you'll redefine it. Your results don't lie. They reveal the quality of your thinking every single time. Let's get brutally honest. Your life right now is a mirror, not of your circumstances, not of your background, not of your intentions, but of your thinking. Everything you've built, everything you've failed to build, every success you celebrate, and every frustration you carry. They are all byproducts of the way you think. Your results are not random. They are precise reflections of your thoughts made visible. You don't get what you want. You don't even get what you work for. You get what you believe, what you expect, and what you think through consistently. That's the truth most people avoid because it demands accountability. But here's the power in it. If your thinking created it, then new thinking can change it. You can't fake results. You can fake motivation, fake energy, fake talk, fake hustle. But the scoreboard of life doesn't lie. If your finances are a mess, if your health is breaking down, if your relationships are dysfunctional, you don't have a money problem, a fitness problem, or a people problem. You have a thinking problem. And that's good news, because your thoughts are under your control. But until you stop blaming, you won't start transforming. It's easy to blame the economy, the algorithm, your past, your parents. It's hard to look in the mirror and say, this is what I've created with the way I've been thinking. That's what leaders do. That's what powerful people do. They own their results because they understand those results are feedback from their mind. The problem is, most people treat results as a mystery instead of a measurement. They say, I don't know why this keeps happening, but if you trace the fruit, it always leads back to the root, and that root is a thought, a belief, a mental framework that shapes every choice you make. You want to know what you really believe, don't check your vision board, check your bank account, don't check your goals, check your calendar, don't check your talk, check your track record, because results tell the truth. You can't manifest your way out of bad thinking. You can't pray your way around poor decisions. You've got to rewire the source code, your thoughts, and this is not about shame. This is about strategy. Because once you understand that your results are simply the natural outcome of mental patterns, then every poor result becomes a lesson. It becomes a signal. It becomes a diagnosis, not a life sentence. The result says, something in my thinking led me here, so the real question becomes, what do I need to believe differently to produce a new outcome? When you begin to think like that, you stop being a victim of results and start becoming the designer of them. Your life shifts from reactive to intentional, from accidental to architectural. Let's make it real. If your business isn't growing, it's not just the market. It's how you're thinking about value, leverage, systems, or scale. If you're stuck in the same toxic cycles in relationships, it's not just bad luck. It's how you're thinking about boundaries, self, worth, and communication. If your body is breaking down, it's not just genetics. It's how you're thinking about discipline, nutrition, and long-term vision. The moment you make that mental shift, you stop looking for surface-level solutions and start pursuing deep, lasting change, because the issue is not what's happening around you, it's what's happening within you. Now here's where the game changes. Once you understand that your thoughts produce your results, you also begin to understand the power of thinking above your current level. You can't solve problems with the same mindset that created them. That means if your results are average, your thinking is average, and average thinking doesn't take risks, it doesn't innovate, it doesn't break patterns, it plays defense, but high-level thinking, correct thinking, it moves with clarity, confidence, and conviction. It plays offense, it builds things the world hasn't seen yet, and it does that because it's not thinking based on current circumstances, it's thinking based on future outcomes. Correct thinking doesn't wait for results to improve before it believes. It believes first, it sees the invisible first, and then it creates the result through aligned action. That's why your thinking must always be a level higher than your current life. You have to think like a millionaire before you earn like one. You have to think like a leader before people follow you. You have to think like someone free before you experience freedom, and the results will always catch up, because they have no choice but to obey your dominant thoughts over time. But here's the warning, your results will never rise higher than the standards in your mind. If you tolerate small thinking, you'll live a small life. If you think in survival, you'll never thrive. If you think in fear, you'll always play small, even with big potential. So check your life. Every area of struggle is whispering something about your thinking, and every breakthrough you want, it's waiting on a shift inside your mind, not a wish, not a hustle, a shift. So today, I challenge you, look at your results, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Ask yourself, what would a higher level of thinking look like in this area? Then adopt it, repeat it, believe it until it becomes your new normal, because once your thinking changes, your results won't have a choice. They'll change too. The law is simple. Thoughts become decisions, decisions become actions, actions become results, and results never lie. Stop reacting to circumstances. Start creating them by choosing thoughts that serve your purpose. The vast majority of people live their lives in response mode, constantly reacting, constantly adjusting, constantly putting out fires they didn't start. They live as if life is happening to them instead of through them. But here's the brutal truth. As long as you're reacting to circumstances, you're not in control. You're in survival. And survival thinking is dangerous because it's short-sighted, emotionally charged, and rooted in fear. If you want to shift your life, if you want to gain power, purpose, and peace, you have to stop reacting and start creating. You have to shift from being a responder of reality to a designer of destiny. And that shift begins with a decision to choose thoughts that serve your purpose, not just your emotions. Reactivity is mental laziness disguised as urgency. People say, I'm just dealing with what life throws at me. But if life is always throwing things at you, maybe it's because you never stopped long enough to design what you wanted it to throw. You can't build a meaningful life by simply dodging problems. You build it by choosing the thoughts that create the conditions you want, not just coping with the conditions you were given. This is the difference between power and passivity. Power thinks forward. Power chooses thoughts that align with vision. Passivity repeats patterns, reacts to pressure, and stays stuck in cycles that feel urgent but lead nowhere. Circumstances are loud, but they are not final. Your thoughts, when chosen correctly, are louder because they determine how you interpret, how you respond, and how you lead through those circumstances. Two people can face the same situation, loss, rejection, failure, and produce completely different outcomes based solely on how they choose to think about it. One collapses, the other builds. Why? Because one reacts and the other creates. One lets life dictate their direction, the other uses the situation as raw material to carve out something new. It's not about what happens, it's about the narrative you build around what happens. Let me make it clear, correct thinking isn't delusional. It doesn't ignore reality. It reinterprets it through the lens of purpose. When you choose thoughts that serve your purpose, you begin to ask higher quality questions. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "How can I use this to grow?" Instead of saying, "This always happens." You say, "What pattern is this exposing in my decisions?" You shift from blame to blueprint. You shift from emotional reactivity to mental responsibility. That's the power of a purpose-driven thought. It gives you agency, and agency is the fuel of transformation. When you live in reaction, you're stuck in emotional cycles. You let other people's energy set your mood. You let external problems steal your peace. You allow setbacks to define your value. But when you choose your thoughts intentionally, you reverse the flow. You create internal alignment so strong that the outside world has no choice but to adjust. That's what true leaders do. They don't just endure environments. They change them. They walk in with clarity, not chaos. They build atmospheres, not just adapt to them, because they've done the internal work of choosing thoughts that match their mission. Now here's the challenge. Reacting feels easier. It feels justified. It lets you off the hook. You get to say, "I'm stressed because of them," or "I'm behind because of that," or "I feel this way because of what happened." But that's borrowed power. That's rented thinking. And anything rented can be taken. When you choose your thoughts based on your purpose, not your pain, you take ownership of your mind. You stop renting your peace. You stop outsourcing your progress. You start building with intention. So how do you choose thoughts that serve your purpose? First, you must know your purpose, not the vague version, not the cute slogan, the real one. Why are you here? What are you building? What kind of person are you becoming? Without a clear vision, you'll always default to reaction because you'll have no target to align your thinking with. But once that purpose is clear, your thoughts become tools, not just impulses. You begin to filter every thought with one question. Does this thought move me closer to who I'm becoming? If the answer is no, it doesn't deserve your energy, and this doesn't mean ignoring emotions. It means leading them. It means letting your purpose guide your emotional responses instead of your emotions hijacking your purpose. You acknowledge your feelings, but you decide your thoughts. You might feel fear, but you choose courage. You might feel pressure, but you choose clarity. You might feel anger, but you choose wisdom. That's power. That's maturity. That's mental leadership. The world trains you to react. Social media, news cycles, emotional triggers. All of it is designed to keep you spinning in reaction. Why? Because reactive people are easy to control, but once you break that cycle and start creating your thoughts based on who you want to become, you become dangerous. In the best way, you're no longer tossed by opinions. You're no longer trapped by circumstances. You're creating new realities by thinking differently. That's the beginning of legacy. That's the seed of greatness. And it all starts with one shift. Stop reacting. Start creating. Choose thoughts that serve your purpose, and let your purpose shape your reality. Correct thinking demands discipline, not just intelligence. Clarity beats cleverness. In today's world, we've been sold a lie that intelligence is the key to success. That if you're smart enough, educated enough, or talented enough, life will just bend to your brilliance. But let me tell you something the world won't. Intelligence without discipline is a liability. It makes you clever but unstable. It makes you impressive but ineffective. Because correct thinking isn't about how smart you are. It's about how consistent and clear you are. If you can't harness your thoughts, focus your energy, and stay aligned with your vision, your intelligence will betray you. The truth is, cleverness may win arguments, but clarity wins lives, and clarity doesn't come from brilliance. It comes from disciplined thinking. Discipline is the invisible backbone of correct thought. It's what separates wishful thinkers from intentional creators. You can read all the books, attend every seminar, quote every guru, but if your thinking lacks discipline, your life will lack direction. And the undisciplined mind is a dangerous place to live. It wanders, it reacts, it overanalyzes, it gets distracted by shiny objects and emotional triggers. 1 minute, it's on fire with vision. The next, it's crippled by doubt. That's not intelligence at work. That's a lack of mental leadership. Discipline is what says, no matter how I feel, I'm choosing thoughts that serve me. Discipline is what says, this is the path, and I will not let noise, fear, or ego knock me off it. And that's why clarity is more powerful than cleverness. Cleverness wants to sound right. Clarity wants to be right. Cleverness chases attention. Clarity creates direction. You don't need more complicated strategies. You need clearer thought. Most people don't fail because they're not smart. They fail because they're not clear. They chase too many ideas. They jump from plan to plan. They start things they never finish. Why? Because their thinking is reactive, emotional, scattered. But when you train your mind to seek clarity, you stop moving fast and start moving right. You ask better questions. You make cleaner decisions. You align every thought with a bigger picture. That's the power of discipline. It filters the noise and amplifies the truth. But let's be honest, discipline isn't sexy, it's not exciting, it's not flashy, it doesn't give you a dopamine rush. What it gives you is results, day by day, thought by thought. It's the quiet, unglamorous decision to hold your mind to a standard when nobody's watching. That's real power. Anybody can be motivated for a moment. But can you think clearly when things fall apart? Can you stay focused when emotions run high? Can you return to your principles when everything around you screams for panic or compromise? That's discipline. That's what separates thinkers who dabble from thinkers who dominate. And hear me on this. Discipline in thought is not suppression. It's not pretending everything's fine or bottling up emotion. It's leadership. It's the ability to acknowledge chaos but not be consumed by it. It's the power to stand in a storm and still choose thoughts of faith, strategy, and conviction. You can be emotional and disciplined. You can be passionate and precise, but only if you build the habit of guiding your thoughts, not letting them guide you. That's what thinkers at the highest level do. They don't get lost in clever mental gymnastics. They keep their thoughts focused on outcomes, not just opinions, on solutions, not just stories. That's where clarity lives. That's where elevation begins. Discipline is the daily grind of clarity. It's the moment when you wake up and your mind says, let's scroll, let's drift, let's panic. And you say, no, we are thinking on purpose today. It's when your mind tries to spiral into worst-case scenarios and you redirect it to best-case actions. It's when your ego wants to win the argument and you choose instead to win the relationship. These are the micro decisions that forge macro results, not because you're smarter than everyone else, but because you're more aligned than everyone else. Your thoughts are not just sharp, they're aimed. That's what correct thinking looks like, not scattered sparks, but laser focus. And the beautiful thing is, anyone can develop this. You don't need to be born a genius to master correct thinking. You just need to be committed to training your thoughts the way an athlete trains their body. Show up daily, track your patterns, replace confusion with structure, replace noise with silence, replace chaos with questions like, what matters most right now? That's the path to mental discipline. And the more you walk it, the clearer your life becomes. You stop being pulled in every direction. You stop needing everyone's approval. You stop reacting and start creating, because your mind is locked in on what actually matters. Remember, clever fades, trends fade, talent even fades, but clarity forged through disciplined thinking, that endures, that scales, that leads, and that wins. So stop trying to impress people with how fast you think. Start committing to how clearly you think, because in the end, it's not about being the smartest in the room, it's about being the most anchored, the most focused, the most intentional, and that doesn't take talent. That takes discipline. You don't need more information. You need transformation through focused, applied thought. We live in the most information-rich era in human history, yet people are more confused, more overwhelmed, and more stuck than ever before. Why? Because access to information is not the same as access to transformation. Knowledge alone doesn't change lives. Applied thought does. You can scroll through 10,000 quotes, listen to endless podcasts, fill your shelves with books, but until you think differently on purpose, none of it means anything. Information is only raw material. Transformation is the construction of a new way of being, and that construction requires focus, intention, repetition, and bold mental shifts. You don't need more strategies. You don't need to chase the next idea. You need to slow down, lock in, and apply what you already know with laser, focused thought, and ruthless execution. The problem is not that people don't know enough. The problem is that people think knowing is the same as becoming. It's not. You don't become fit by reading fitness books. You don't become wealthy by watching videos about money. You don't become confident by repeating affirmations you don't believe. You become those things when you apply correct thought with discipline, decision, and action over and over until the transformation becomes your new normal. You can't think your way into a new life with scattered thinking. You have to decide to lock into the kind of thoughts that produce the change you claim to want. Transformation is never random. It's a deliberate byproduct of what you consistently choose to dwell on, believe in, and act out. We've become addicted to information because it makes us feel productive. It scratches the itch of progress without requiring the pain of practice. But the person who knows less and acts more will always outperform the one who consumes more and executes nothing. What you need is not more inputs. You need intentional output. You need to take the truth you already know and live it, test it, wrestle with it, and refine it until it breaks the limits in your life. That is the work of focused thinking. That is how transformation begins, not by jumping from mentor to mentor or from method to method, but by choosing one thought, one truth, one principle, and driving it deep into your life until it rewires your patterns and rebuilds your outcomes. The most powerful people aren't walking encyclopedias. They are focused thinkers. They know how to take a single concept and work it like a craftsman until it produces fruit. They understand that shallow understanding leads to shallow results. They're not impressed by how much they've heard. They are obsessed with how deeply they understand and embody what they know. That's where change lives, in embodiment, not entertainment. You don't need more noise. You need stillness. You need repetition. You need the courage to sit with a single lie, altering thought, and refuse to move on until it becomes part of your operating system. And here's where transformation gets real. It requires subtraction before addition. You don't just add new thoughts. You remove old ones, you uproot lies, you challenge assumptions, you dismantle inherited beliefs that no longer serve you. You strip away mental clutter until your mind becomes a clean, focused, fertile ground where new vision can grow. That's not easy. That's why most people stay stuck. It's easier to scroll than to confront, but transformation lives on the other side of confrontation. It lives in the space where you say, "This thought no longer serves me," and you replace it with one that does. That's not inspiration, that's warfare, mental warfare, and the ones who win are not the smartest. They are the most relentless. Every breakthrough in your life will come through a moment of deep focus, where you silence the noise, stare your current thinking in the face, and choose differently. That's it. That's the door, not a magic formula, not a trendy course. A decision to stop being entertained and start being transformed. You want to change your income, change your thoughts about value, wealth, and contribution, and apply them. You want to change your health, change your thoughts about consistency, discipline, and identity, and apply them. You want to change your self-worth, change your thoughts about who you are and what you deserve, and apply them. Information isn't transformation, application is. This is why correct thinking must be applied thinking. It's not just theory, it's traction, it moves you, it creates momentum. It digs roots so deep that your new way of thinking becomes your new default. No more back and forth, no more breakthrough on Monday and breakdown by Friday. When you apply the right thoughts with focus, repetition, and belief, transformation is no longer a high. You build it into your identity. You don't visit it, you become it. That's how change lasts. So today, stop chasing more. Stop running after the next mental sugar rush. Take one thought, just one, that you know is right, and lave it so deeply that it breaks open a new level of power in your life. That's how you go from knowing to becoming. That's how you turn potential into power. And that's how you stop consuming information and start creating transformation.